10 years ago, the word Brexit first actually came into existence. The first actual use of term, again, tracked all the way back to the use in 2012. And I can't exactly remember the guy who used it, but if you follow the Eurosceptic phenomenon, especially here in the UK, those early years around like 2010 to 2012 were very, very important for the Eurosceptic movement to essentially end up with their big achievement, of course, being in 2016, culminating in 2020 when we, quote, finally left the EU and were able to throw our shackles off. Again, it really hasn't been going all that successful, but Irexit or Irexit, I don't know how you pronounce it exactly, is something that the people of Ireland should be very worried about. Because as you can see from the title, does anyone actually take the talk of Ireland leaving the EU seriously? No one who was very pro-EU took the notion of Brexit seriously here in the UK, be they from the right, centre or left. And back in that day when they were those early years organizing around the 2010, 2011, 2012, and they became organized and they started to find the cracks, shall we say, and really start pushing home among these different factions. This is why, again, shockingly, you had Lib Dems, Conservatives, even Labour Party people who may vastly disagree politically, but were very agreed on the idea of Brexit. Again, Katie Hoey, a Labour MP, comes to mind, of course. So it is today we ask this question: does actually anyone take the notion of Ireland leaving the EU seriously? And I say to you now, take it seriously. But anyway, before we do that, we are going to jump into this article. And before we do that, I'd like to ask you to hit the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do support the channel that way. So this comes from The Buzz, which I think is an Irish sort of news site. So, Irexit. Does anyone take the talk of Ireland leaving the EU seriously? So over the weekend, former mixed martial arts world champion Dubliner Colin McGregor asked his Twitter followers if it was time to talk about Ireland leaving the European Union. The prospect of Irexit has once again entered the discourse, even though Ireland is the least likely of the EU 27 to actually want to leave the bloc. It is highly unlikely that Irexit will happen, as Chief Executive of the European Movement of Ireland actually pointed out in a recent interview with Buzz. Irish people have absolutely no appetite for it. In the European Movement of Ireland's most recent poll, 84% of Irish people agreed with the statement that Ireland should remain a member of the EU. This has been constantly high since the United Kingdom voted to leave in 2016. In spite of that polling, of course, when Nigel Farage paid a visit to Dublin in 2018, he spotted the gap in the Irish political market for an Irexit party, and a 600-man strong, almost male crowd turned out to hear him say it. At that very same conference that Farage spoke at, James Carty, the independent country councillor from Galway, said that he had been inundated with calls and emails of the prospect of Irexit of a political party being formed there. Speaking with the Irish Times, Cloudley said that he rejected what the polls said about Irish support for the EU. He cited the 2 times when Ireland had rejected an EU mandate treaty before being headed back to the polls and voting in favour of what the bloc wanted both times. Charty also said that he felt that the rural vote would lead to the change on Irexit, similar to how rural voters supported the unexpected victories for both Brexit and the US 2016 presidential election of Donald Trump. This is why, again, you should take it seriously. If you seriously do not think this would happen, or this could one day turn into a threat, just think 10 years ago, we were seeing very similar articles about this in the form of the UK. So take this seriously. Of course, in 2018, Farage helped to found the Irish Freedom Party, with Herman Kelly as its leader. And according to its website, the aim of the National Freedom Party is to re-establish the national independence and sovereignty of Ireland and the restoration of the national democracy to be achieved through leaving the European Union. The crowd at Farage conference back in 2018 may have been small, but it was taken very seriously. Finals Fail Stephen Donnelly said that at the time, the people at the conference were responding to the economic hardships that had been addressed, that had not been addressed in Ireland. Perhaps that was what Farage meant when he said he had found Ireland had been humiliated. Although McGregor had since deleted his tweet now talking and asking if Irish people should think about leaving the EU, he did not do it soon enough for it to be picked up by, of course, the far right-wing website Breitbart. The site reported that McGregor's tweet was proof that the MMA star was throwing his weight behind the pro-sovereignty movement. Reporting on the tweet, the Breitbart article said that Ireland was strong-armed into asking for a bailout from the Troika in 2010. The bailout came away with a rake of austerity measures that are now blamed for Ireland's soaring rents and the homeless crisis, among others. Linking economic hardship to Irexit is just what Donnelly did back in 2018. Donnelly said at the time that while he didn't think Irexit was possible, we absolutely need to take seriously the fact that there are too many people being disenfranchised by the current direction of the country. However, while the polling on, of course, the remaining in the EU has always remained high, the COVID-19 pandemic has cast a shadow of support on the work for the EU and the European Commission. The same European Movement poll found that 84% of people were in favour of remaining a member of the EU, but also found that 48% also disagreed with the statement that they have confidence with the EU's COVID-19 vaccine strategy. Just 45% agreed with that statement. And far-right groups in Ireland have been making an attempt to use the pandemic to recruit people to their causes, such as the Journal has reported. The Irish Freedom Party ran 11 candidates back in February of the 2020 elections. All of them were unsuccessful. And today, they total just a tract of 0.25% of the national vote. And in fact, no far-right party in the last general election polled more than 2% of the vote in any constituency, according to the Journal. Today, the Irish Times reports that the leader of the Irish Freedom Party, Herman Kelly, has been hoping to lead a campaign in the European Parliament against the rules that requires visitors and staff to be elected representatives to take a negative test or even provide vaccination proof of recovery of COVID-19. The pro-Irexit Kelly currently works as a press officer for a Romanian MEP who is vehemently opposed to mandatory vaccines. Kelly contracted COVID-19 back in November and forced him to cancel events that he'd planned in Dunfermline, Ludsmore, and Waterford. Posters advertising events likened the COVID-19 passes to apartheid. So far, these groups have failed to try and hit the mainstream, but their messages are being monitored as the Irish Examiner and reporters of the Irish Minute reports that Ar Garda Síochána are investigating far-right groups and are involved in anti-vaccine protesters. The other argument for Irexit is it better for Ireland to be tied to the desires of the United Kingdom than those of the continental Europe? And the best way to achieve that, of course, is to leave the EU. In 2019, the then Junior Minister of Foreign Affairs, Helen McEntee, was asked on the BBC radio programme why Ireland didn't throw its lot in with Britain. The presenter said, there has to be an argument, doesn't there, that says that instead of Dublin telling this country that we have the right to stay in the single market, etc., with the customs union, why doesn't the Republic of Ireland leave the EU and throw their lot in with this country? In their response, McKernan fell back on the polling, which at the time suggested that at least 92% of Irish people preferred remaining in the EU, a figure which has increased since the Brexit vote. But before the Brexit came into effect, there were arguments from respected Irish academics saying that Ireland is better off being tethered to the UK than Europe. In just the last few months, we've seen Britain struggle with several ramifications of Brexit, between fishing, disruptions with France, lorry driver shortage, all due to its previous dependence on foreign workers, and most importantly, the ongoing issues with Northern Ireland Protocol. These issues are likely to make leaving the EU look far less attractive, and all of them have had knock-on consequences for Britain's nearest neighbour. Not every consequence of Brexit has been bad, however. For example, the cross-trade across the Irish Sea border has strengthened, and again, it's hard to see how this will attract anyone to a favourable Irexit viewpoint. And while that may be true for now, Do not discount this idea. I say this as someone who's, again, very, very pro-European and wants the UK back in the European Union. Do not discount these. You need to keep aware of these people. You need to keep an eye on what's going on. And remember, Nigel Farage and UKIP never once had a single MP in the House of Parliament. So be incredibly, incredibly careful when it comes to this. You know, take this talk seriously. And if you do take them seriously, then it will never be allowed, shall we say, to flourish. Because if you don't take them seriously and you just let them plant their seeds, in 10 years' time, who knows what those seeds could grow into. So always be careful and always take this talk very, very seriously. And I tell you now, from like the European movement perspectives here in the UK, there are people of Conservatives, Labour Party on the left, on the right, on the centre. We're all very pro-European. We want back in the European Union, but at the time, we were split between party divides. There was all sorts of messes going on, but that's a conversation for another time. So always take this seriously and unite when it comes to being very pro-EU, regardless of whatever side of the political divide you may find yourself on at that time. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button in and around, as you can see. And always, there are links to my Patreon page down below and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next.